You were not born to work. You work so that you can live. That's the difference. It's so important to drive this stuff home because you're going to burn out. And if you burn out, then what good are you to anybody?
You're listening to Home Care Hindsight, the podcast where we talk with home care leaders about the big mistakes they've made and the even bigger lessons they've learned along the way. I'm David Knack, head of sales here at Zingage, and I've built a career on the idea that we learn a whole lot more from our mistakes than from our successes, which is great because I've made a lot of mistakes. I've gotten to know some of the leaders in this industry who've built amazing businesses and are super well respected. So I thought it'd be fun, instead of asking them about the great things they've accomplished, to have them tell the story of one of the biggest mistakes that they've made and how that mistake changed their thinking and the way they run their business. All right, we are back with another episode of Home Care Hindsight, brought to you by Zingage, the leading caregiver engagement platform for home care. I'm joined today by a very special guest, Steve the Hurricane Weiss. Welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me, brother. I'm looking forward to it. Since we met in Vegas last year, I have been looking forward to this podcast.
Exactly the same. Well, I think probably most people who are listening know you and have seen you like all over. You've been around for a while, but if people are not familiar with you, how would you introduce yourself?
I would introduce everybody as, I'm Steve Weiss. That's my real name. Steve the Hurricane is my registered trademark. I'm the owner of Hurricane Marketing Enterprises. We DBA as Home Care Evolution, and we help home care agencies to adapt to the changing circumstances of running a business in this space, because every single week there's something new that we have to adapt to. Once we get that adaptation in place, we help these owners transform their business so it can thrive for the next decade to come. And so we've been doing this since 2012, and I'm just honored and blessed to say that we have clients not just in all 50 states, but also internationally in Great Britain, in Spain, in Australia, in Brazil, Mexico, Canada. So we're an international firm.
You know, when we first met, I had, of course, known you from around, basically since my first day in home care. You're kind of a hard guy to avoid in this space. But one of the things that really stood out to me is when we met in Las Vegas, we'd never interacted before, but we went out with a few people in Las Vegas, did not do anything crazy for the listeners here at home. There was nothing that exciting or anything. But one of the things that stood out to me is everybody kind of had their list of like, I want to go ride the roller coaster at New York, and I want to get a chocolate martini, and each of those things. And it was like you had like a checklist in your mind of like, we got to make sure that everybody gets to do their Las Vegas thing while we're here. And that was just something that I think was unexpected to me, but that like, now that I know you more, I'm like, oh, of course that's what happened.
Yeah, it's you know what it is? I'm very blessed. I started this in 2012, and I have been to Las Vegas a solid like 30, 35 times during those last, 13, 14 years now. And being that I've been there so many times, and we're sitting there at dinner, and the event is over, we're all going home the next day. We went to Nobu, right? And we had this
had some really good sushi.
Like just, I still can't remember. It must have been like 40 different types of sushi that you all ate. But we're sitting there, and everyone's talking about, I want to do this, I want to do that. And I'm like, you know what? Let's do a walking tour, and we're going to hit everybody's checklist, like you said, because when we may all never be together in Vegas again. Like, I'll go to Vegas, you'll go to Vegas, but we never all may be there at the same time. So let's make the most of it. And I'm glad that you got to be a part of it. I'm glad we got to walk around and do all of the fun stuff in Vegas, all the kosher stuff. I know you said like nothing wild, but the roller coasters, the martinis, the good food and seeing the sights that everybody wanted to see. That's a big part of what we do. We got to work hard, but we also have to play hard.
Yeah, I love it. Well, for this next section, I always do a part called What Kind of Person Are You? And I want to know about something that most people don't know that they'd probably be surprised to learn about you.
So most people, unless you know me well, you would not know that I am a huge fan of Japanese animation. I am a nerd for that stuff. I grew up watching Dragon Ball Z. That was my favorite anime. I have Goku as my favorite character. He's on the back of my cell phone. His stickers are all over the back of my laptops. This is one of my laptops. I have multiple laptops, and the stickers are all over the place. My staff, as a gift, gave me a caricature of me as Goku right there. That was a Christmas present that they gave me a couple years ago, and I am just super into it. I even have him on my wall over here. I'm a Giants fan too, but there's Goku right there. There's Goku, Goku again. Like, I love this show. And then my daughter, my youngest daughter, Sienna, she got me into Demon Slayer, and the new movie is coming out on July 18th. And I cannot wait for that movie, the Infinity Castle arc. It is amazing. I recently started watching Solo Leveling. Like, I can just go on and on. And this is not an anime podcast.
It's not.
I am a big fan of Japanese anime.
Well, if you're not watching this on YouTube, you're missing out. You just got a tour around Steve's office full of all the different areas that he has anime paraphernalia just littered across the space. I love it. Well, Steve, you've helped a lot of home care agencies grow, scale, figure out their marketing, their referral networking, all this kind of stuff. You've accomplished a lot in your career, but we're not here to talk about any of that. Instead, I bring people on the show to talk about the big mistake that they've made in their business and how it changed the way that they think about approaching their life and their business. So what's your big mistake?
So I love that you asked this question, because it's so important as we're speaking to entrepreneurs out there. And it's ironic. And I did prepare for our meeting. So I have this book here. This book, it's called One Habit for Entrepreneurial Success. And this is the largest collection of entrepreneurial advice from over 300 authors. And the reason why I'm mentioning this is because they approached me, and I'm the one who wrote the 16th chapter in here, right? That's my picture there. And I talked about keeping a morning routine. And the reason why I'm saying this as a success is because when I first started the business, I dove in 100%. There's a reason why you heard of me, because I started making all the YouTube videos in 2012. I have 700 plus videos. I have millions of views collected and thousands of followers. And when I was making those videos, and then I was getting coaching clients, and I was just diving into the business, 2012, 2013, 2014, for 3 years straight, I was working nonstop. And my relationship with my wife suffered. My relationship with my children suffered. We were not making as much money as we were used to living off of when I had my home care agency, and we didn't adjust our expenses. So, you're making this much money and you're living at this much money, but you're now only making this much money. We started to blow through all of the savings we had, and I wasn't making time for my faith, and everything was just falling apart. And I got to a point where I blew through everything. I was getting sick. My life was falling apart. And I had a come to Jesus moment. I really did. I'm a person of faith. I fell on my knees. I surrendered everything to the Lord because I couldn't do this. I was crying and devastated from all this time and effort and energy into it. And, after I gave God my business, then my business started to turn. I received a miracle. We got through that little storm. And then I started to change my routine and change from, let's stop complaining about what we don't have. Let's stop complaining about, what's not going right. And let's look at what is going right. And let's give that the priority. I woke up today. There are a lot of people that didn't. So, thank you, Father, for letting me wake up today. My wife woke up today. A lot of people's wives didn't wake up today. So I'm going to be grateful for that, and not just be grateful for that, but go downstairs and show her that she is important to me. And, so I started making her coffee, and we sit down and we spend, time together in the morning. My kids, we made these kids. Well, I had no relationship with them because I was working so much. You know what? I'm going to put them the priority that they should be. Take interest in their education, take interest in their sports and their extracurricular, and get involved in their lives, because that's giving me fulfillment. All of these things that I'm sharing, that is now my routine. So that by the time everybody went to school and everybody went off to work and everything else, and then I stepped foot in my office, what matters to me has been satisfied. Now I can focus on my work and serving my clients and getting them their results. And so by having that routine, and this was 2014 when I had this realization. So we're talking 11 years ago now. But that changed everything. That's when my company took off. That was our first $1 million year. And, now we're a multi-million-dollar empire. We're international now. And it all came from just putting the priorities that we all have in life, but putting them in the order where they should be. The things that matter to us most, get that done so that we're fulfilled, so that our battery is charged, and then go to work, because work is always going to be there. But if we
Yeah.
come into it fulfilled and happy, we can handle anything that comes our way.
Mm. So obviously the particulars are going to look different for everybody, but what are kind of the markers there? Because I heard you talk about like the relationships, spouse, kids, that kind of thing. What are the other kinds of things that you're doing and making time for to make sure that you're showing up to work in the best way possible?
Definitely making sure self-care is a big part of it. I know you were at the boot camp, David. I don't know if you were in when I went over the whole, there's 168 hours in a week. And if you write down 168 hours and let's subtract 56 hours for sleep, which is a third of the week, that leaves you with 112 hours. And then I tell everybody to write this down word for word and say, Steve gives me permission. And the reason why I say Steve gives me permission is so that when somebody says, I can't, you don't know my life, you don't understand, I can say, that's an excuse. I don't care. I gave you permission. Blame it on me, right?
Yep.
But I tell people that Steve gives me permission to spend 10% of this 112 hours on yourself every single week and make that the priority. And so 112 hours, about 10% is 12 hours. So if you spend 12 hours, which is like 85 minutes a day, 15 minutes reading some scripture, 15 minutes going for a walk, maybe a half an hour to do some strength training, right? 15 minutes for some meditation, 15 minutes just to sit on your back porch and watch the squirrels chase each other. That me time goes so far because you got 100 hours for everything else that you got to do.
Yep.
And because you're in the right place, because you prioritize that me time for self, you can handle what comes because you're not burning yourself out. And it's very tough to do. I still work at it myself, but because of I'll even tell you, I'm proud of myself. I lost 15 pounds since January 1st. This is March 5th. Right? Today is March 5th. I know it's coming out later on, but today is March 5th when we're filming this. I've lost 15 pounds, 7% body fat. My energy is through the roof. My body is coming back again. And it's all because of making the priority for self-care as part of that routine with my relationships so that I can truly handle whatever comes my way.
Yeah. I think creating, because I mean, one of the things that you do when you work with clients and at your boot camps and stuff is give people systems and kind of operational handbooks and manuals for like, hey, here's the framework to approach any of these kinds of things that you run into in your business. But one of the things that I'm hearing you say is like, it's not sufficient just to have a framework. You have to also take care of yourself so that you can execute on those frameworks. Your business, you are not abdicated of your responsibility to still run your business and to still show up and run your life. And so you've got to really take care of yourself, make sure your priorities are in order, or else you're going to flame out in the business and you're not going to actually provide any help to anybody.
Right. At the boot camp, you heard me say it, where at the very beginning, when I go into this whole part of it, I always say this is the most important part at the beginning because I'm going to train you on how to run your business. But if your house is out of order,
Yeah.
it doesn't matter how successful your business is because you're miserable, and then I go into, we all know these famous celebrities like Chester from Linkin Park. That's my favorite band.
Yeah.
Robin Williams, everybody knows who that is, right? These gentlemen took their lives because they were so unfulfilled here and here, even though they were millionaires, multi-millionaires, right? So your business could be running great, but if you're not fulfilled, it doesn't matter. So no matter what I train you on for your business, if your house is out of order, it's not going to make a difference. Get your house, get your personal life together, then you're going to be able to handle anything that comes your way and your business will grow. And that's why my clients are so successful, because I do work with them on self and then taking that and it spills over into their business. And then as they start working on self, they get their staff to work on self. They start encouraging caregivers to work on self. And then it creates this whole culture around caring for ourselves and caring for one another. Success breeds success.
Yeah. I think that's, one of the things that stands out to me when I talk to home care owners is a lot of these people are from the outside looking in are crushing it, right? They've got a business that is doing 2 or 3 million a year in revenue. They're bringing home, $300,000, $500,000 in cash flow from the business. But I think so many times those people, external factors make it look like they're really successful. They do not feel successful.
You are 100% correct. And it's something where I've really prided myself on it. Like, you see a lot of the pictures I have with my clients and the relationships I have with my clients, even like when we went out to Vegas, like we mentioned at the beginning here. I always try to pride myself on making sure that everybody has that true work-life balance. And it's
Mm,
funny because I know a lot of people say like there's this whole movement where there's no such thing, there's no such thing. There is a such thing.
yeah.
It's different from person to person, but there is a such thing. But in order to do it, just like, you put time in making your business well-rounded, you got to put time in making your life well-rounded. We have to prioritize things. We also have to get good at saying no to other things. And then also making sure that we don't fall into some of the traps. Like, I love this. I love my cell phone, but this thing can be the biggest time waste of all.
Yeah.
I could sit on the couch and put my phone in my hand and start scrolling and reading and doing a whole bunch of stuff. The next thing you know, 2.5 hours is blown by. I'm like, holy crap, I sat on the couch for 2.5 hours. But if I make sure I get up and I walk the dogs, or, we make dinner as a family, or we clean up after, we eat dinner as a family without our cell phones, like if I make a conscious effort to not be on the thing and give myself time limits on it, that allows me to be fulfilled. Taking vacations is another thing I'm real big on. I think I said this at the boot camp that, your first 3 years, you gotta go do what you gotta do. But after 3 years, if you're working more than 40, 45 hours a week after 3 years in business, you are doing something wrong. Like you shouldn't be working more than 40, 45 hours owning a business after the first 3 years because you haven't figured it out yet. That's when you better be investing in training or a consultant, because you're doing it wrong, because you're working harder than you should be. You were not born to work. You
Mm,
work so that you can live. That's the difference. And so, I know we're going on a little bit of a tangent here, but
yeah.
it's so important to drive this stuff home, because you're going to burn out. And if you burn out, then what good are you to anybody?
Perfect. Okay, we're going to go to a section next where I ask you about something that's totally underrated in home care. People overlook it all the time, and you think that more people should pay attention to it. And if they did, it'd make a big impact on their business.
So I'd say the biggest, most underrated aspect of running a home care business that people don't realize until they really get into it is just how easy, and I'm doing it for a
Big
reason,
air quotes.
it is to be able to generate a multi-million-dollar a year agency. It seems like it's this big monumental task, but it really isn't. If you get 4 well-qualified referral sources, that's it. One assisted living, one home health, one hospice, and one skilled nursing facility. Each one of those places, if they refer you just 2 patients a month, and you were to sign on 1 out of those 2 patients, right? Times 4, that's 4 patients a month. These are high need patients that are getting 40 hours, 56 hours, 84 hours a week and beyond each. That right there, over the course of 12 months, I mean, you're literally talking about 48 to 50 patients just from 4 accounts. That's over $1 million in revenue. And then with your SEO and your website and your Google ads and the artificial intelligence, all the different programs that exist out there to bring leads to you digitally, that's another $1 million. And so I put it together and I say that, like, and it really is that easy, right? It really is that easy. So if you had 1 client a week from every one of your referral sources sign up, and then 1 from all of your internet leads, that's 2 clients a week. That's over 104 clients a year you're bringing in. And I know just by the law of averages, no matter where you are in the country, that's $3 to $4 million in revenue. That is where it's the most underrated aspect of it. I've seen people with a census of 25 patients, 30 patients that's doing $2.5, $3 million in revenue. You don't need high volume. You need high need patients. I call them nerds, right? Great need, elderly, resources, disabled, or dementia. That's a nerd patient. But if you bring in a high need patient and you get 20 of them, that's $2 million in revenue right there every single year. So the most underrated aspect of this business is the fact that you can scale it to multiple seven figures in a relative short window of time.
One of the things that I've talked to people about is, like I think a good metric for do I have those high need patients is number of hours on average per client per week. And I've talked to people before who just feel really stuck in their business. And when I ask that question, the answer is I've got a bunch of clients who have 7 or 8 hours a week. And what I find is a lot of times those are coming in through paid lead sources that aren't always able to provide the highest value leads. A lot of times folks are going to those paid sources because they're really nervous about the resources. They're looking for a guide. Maybe they've already kind of struck out finding care themselves and they're looking for placement services. And so what would you say, like in the kind of direct to consumer digital advertising realm, that are some easy things to do to tweak to make sure that you're getting folks who need higher number of hours per week instead of like 5, 6, 7, 8 hours?
So that's a great question. It definitely takes the combination 1-2 punch of digital online presence with direct referral marketing. You cannot do it without the direct referral marketing aspect of it. I know people want to get away from it, but you're not going to be, because when you go direct referral relationship, now you're talking to a social worker, you're talking to a director of nursing, you're talking to an administrator, you're talking to a therapy group or a therapist themselves, and they're sending you somebody that has a lot of needs because they're working with that person, right? So you can literally ask for and train and condition your referral sources for the kind of patients you're looking for.
Yeah.
There's nothing digitally that can really qualify that. The second aspect of it, what people can do is a lot of folks, and this is wild, David, this is wild. Think about what I'm about to say here, right? I'm going to give you an example. If you have a toothache, do you go to the dentist and say, you have to replace this tooth? No, you don't do that. You go to the dentist and say, I have a toothache, help me. And then the dentist says, all right, David, this is a cavity. I have to do X, Y, and Z to fix it. Do you want me to do it? And you say, yes, please, because my tooth is in pain. So what does that mean? How does that translate? That exact example is what people are doing with home care. People call your office and they say, I want somebody to come out for a bath visit twice a week. And we're like, okay, we'll sell you that. Who knows what that person needs? If that person can't take a shower by themselves. I mean, I took a shower today. David, I hope you took a shower today,
I did.
right? I'm sure
Yep.
your listeners, I hope that they took a shower today, at the very least one last night, right? That is an easy, basic thing. It's an activity of daily living. We all got dressed, right? So if a patient can't do that,
Yeah.
what else is that patient unable to do? They're probably not driving. They're probably not going to doctor's appointments like they should and running errands. They're probably not cleaning their house, probably a mess. They probably are in a hard time cooking food because they can't stand over a stove because it's the same motor skills it takes to get dressed, it takes to cook. So they're not eating properly. They're probably having medication mishaps and issues. So instead of selling the person the visit 2 days a week, you say, yes, we can do that. And then you schedule time to go out and meet with them and you sit down and you go over, here is how we're going to help you. We will help you by setting up the right amount of care to keep your mother out of the hospital.
Yep.
That requires X, Y, and Z, not ABC. ABC is what you're asking for. That's a part of it, but you also need X, Y, and Z. That could be 20 hours. That could be 28 hours. That could be 40 hours, whatever it is. In my professional opinion, I am the agency. I take care of a lot of people and have taken care of a lot of people over the years. I think this is what you need. First time going through this, you have no idea what you need.
Sure.
And if we make this work, we can keep you out of the hospital. Do you want to move forward? And let the family decide. When I used to do this with my company, Care Choice, back in the day, and look, I'm nostalgic. I got everything. I didn't even think we were going to get into Care Choice, but I always have stuff. So when I got my company, Care Choice, back in the day, that was my logo. That's how we did it. When I first came on, Brian, who was the owner of the company, I think we had an average client of like 14 hours a week.
Sure.
We had a lot of what you just said there. And I sat down and I'm like, Brian, why are we giving people the services that they're asking for if it's not enough?
Yeah.
That doesn't make any sense. Like if we're the ones who are doing this, we need to sit down and talk with them and do assess the situation and then come up with a plan. It's almost like if a pipe bursts in your wall, the plumber comes out and the contractor comes out to fix it. I'm not going to tell the plumber what I want him to do. He's going to tell me what it takes to fix it so
Yep.
that it doesn't happen again. And then he's going to tell me it's going to cost 10 grand. And then I'm going to be like, ugh, here's my money, right? Because you got to fix it, right?
Yep.
So it's the same exact thing here. We can't be shy of our rates. We can't be giving people the services that they're asking for if it's not what they need. Like, give them what they need and let them decide. And if that means they say no, that's fine. We're not the agency for everyone.
Sure.
That's how you build it up properly. And then again, what's happening here? We're improving patient outcomes. You know why we're improving patient outcomes? Because we're giving the right amount of care to keep that person home. They stay on the services, not because nobody wants to be on home care,
Sure.
but they stay on it because they're getting their goals met.
Yep.
That's fulfillment. And that's what allows you to scale and grow with relative ease.
Amazing.
There's a lot.
Yeah, there's a lot there. I think this is such a timely discussion too, because as we continue, there's all of these kind of changes happening in the way healthcare is being delivered with Medicare, with Medicare Advantage, et cetera. More people are coming home sicker. We are able to handle, from a home health perspective, much more complex cases at home. There's folks getting cancer treatment at home. There's folks getting dialysis at home. There's folks getting treatment for COPD and CHF and other kinds of debilitating conditions at home. And so home care needs to stop being the redheaded stepchild of healthcare that is non-skilled, non-medical. We tell people what we aren't, and has to become a key stakeholder in this process of helping keep people at home healthy and longer. And all of that feeds back into, if we can speak the language of healthcare and we can talk about reducing hospitalizations and helping our stakeholders with their readmission rates, then we are going to provide so much value to our referral sources than if we go in and we say, we're homemaker services and we're sitters. And I know nobody's using that language, but I think we still carry the baggage of we're companion care and sitters and all that kind of stuff. And everybody, I know, provides that level of service, but we are real stakeholders in the healthcare continuum. And I think we've got to treat ourselves as such.
I love that you said that. And it's so funny. I'm so glad that you came to the boot camp, right, 2 weeks ago, because at that boot camp, the primary thing I talked about initially, opening comments, was work-life balance that we just spoke on. But then I went into, once I transitioned after opening comments, the whole rest of the event was about exactly what you said, and taking care of these nerd patients I keep referencing. They're medically complicated patients,
Yeah.
and giving them a bath visit once, twice a week is not enough. Right. And then the whole point that I said, that the very next thing I went into, I taught the entire audience the exact coin of phrase. My company's going through a rapid expansion. We are looking to add a couple of strategic partnerships so that we can create an interdisciplinary team that allows us to provide superior outcomes for our patients. What you just said, the need of having that interdisciplinary team working with our referral partners to improve their outcomes, tracking readmissions, all of that stuff all goes together in fulfillment of my responsibility of part of that team, which is what leads the other parties to refer me, and together we will take care of this patient and keep them home. People are coming home sicker than they've ever come home before. People don't want to go to hospitals. People aren't going in nursing homes long-term the way that they used to. We have to up our game and truly be a part of this interdisciplinary team. We're no longer the ugly redheaded stepchild at the table.
Yeah. All right. Well, we talked about a big mistake that you made in your career. What is a little mistake that you see home care owners make all the time? And if they quit, it'd make their lives or their businesses like 10 times better.
So I got two of them for you.
Great.
We're going to break this down. I got for the new business owner who just got started in the last 3 years and they haven't really reached the level of success yet. And then to the more experienced business owner, these are the mistakes that I see people make. So from the new business owner, the mistake that I see they always make is they get hung up in this analysis paralysis of compliance. And I got to make sure that I dot my I's and I cross my T's, and I got to get the caregivers, and I got to get the orientation, and I got to do this and I got to do that. And all of these compliance things, which are great. You have to, obviously, If you're going to take care of a human being, you have to be compliant. You have to know what you're doing on it. But they put so much of an emphasis on that side of it that they put very little, if any, emphasis on the actual sales side of it, of getting a patient to sign up. And so I see these small agency owners that get open. They spend 6 months to get their operation going, and then it takes them another 6 months, and they get 1, 2 patients during that time, and they're hemorrhaging money, or they're still working a full-time job, which I'm going to be real. You, David, you've watched Shark Tank. I've watched Shark Tank, right? You see when an entrepreneur comes on that show pitching an idea to the sharks, and the owner of that business is working a full-time job, zero sharks will invest in it. And
Mm,
what they actually say, they say, David, I'm not going to work with you because you don't have a business. You have a hobby because you're not
mm.
full-time in it. So can people do it? Of course, people do it all the time. But I think that that's a disservice to your clients. Here we are. We just spent time talking about medically complicated people. You can't be taking care of somebody medically complicated, having a full-time job where you can't answer the phone and go help that person if they need you. You shouldn't do that, right? So you have to go full in your business. And when you do, you have to be able to acquire new clients to sign up. If you can't sell, if you can't get people to sign up with you, you're going to have this great business with all this compliance, and the state isn't going to care because you're not taking care of anybody. You have to know how to sell. You have to know how to sign people up and get your business growing. As you get patients, then you can make sure that you're compliant, one patient at a time, and it'll automatically happen through osmosis of fulfillment. So that's the mistake that new business owners are making.
Let me ask you about this because what I find is that people get into this business typically through a personal experience with a loved one, and either it was good and they want to scale that impact to a bunch of people, or more often it was a terrible experience and they want to make sure that nobody else has the experience that they did with mom or dad. And so I think they typically feel now, are they proud of the price? Are they proud of the level of service that they're providing? Sometimes, sometimes not. But I think typically they are very comfortable talking to people who were in the same shoes they were in, right? They're able to close clients when they get face to face. The problem is that's a B2C sale. It's business to customer. The But a referral source is business to business. And so I think that's something that people often feel a lack of confidence. I can't get past the gatekeeper. I always feel like I'm bugging them. I know I've only got 2 minutes before they kick me out, and they're just, they see people like me all the time. And so how do you kind of confront that head trash that people have of that anxiety of going to those referral sources? And then what are the kinds of things they can say? You're in New Jersey. It's crazy competitive there.
It
What are the
is.
kinds of things they can say that set them apart from the other 25 home care providers who've come to see that same discharge planner this week?
So you asked a loaded question there, and there's a lot of facets to it. So the biggest thing that I can tell everybody is you have to be yourself. That's the best advice I can give is be yourself. Don't be afraid. Be confident in yourself. You have a story. Tell your story. I always tell my clients, and I said this at the boot camp too, facts, Facts, facts tell. So I'm a home care agency. We're bonded and insured. We have caregivers. Those are the facts. That tells. But nobody's gonna buy because you have that. It's stories sell.
Mm.
So I started this company because of blah, 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 right? That's your story. That's what makes people like you. That's what gets people to start to trust you. That's what gets people to want to give you some time and want to start working with you. And to the person who's brand new, who doesn't know the business yet, we'll stay on that person for now. I always say, use your newness to your advantage.
Mm.
At one point in time when I was at Care Choice, right? I'm sitting at Care Choice. I sold dairy products. So I worked for a dairy. I worked for Borden's Dairy, Elsie the cow, the cheese brand, everybody knows, right? So I worked for Borden's Dairy for 3 years before I got into healthcare. Before that, I sold cars, I sold waterproofing, and I sold knives when I was in college.
Yeah.
I went to school to be a pastor, right? So that was my background. I am not a nurse. For 6 months while I started business development, the acronym ADLs, I thought that was Lou Gehrig's disease. So I had no idea. But everywhere I went, I would walk in and I would say, "Hi, I'm Steve. I'm from Care Choice. We are a home care company, and that is all I know." That's exactly what I said, right? And people were like, "What are you talking? What?" And I was like, "Well, I can tell you where you can get a gallon of milk for $1.99 though. And people are like, what are you talking about? Like, yeah, the gas station around the corner. That used to be my client, whatever. About you can go there, tell Tony I said hi, and you can get a gallon of milk for $1.99. Tell him Steve sent you. And people were so confused. They were like, what? Who are you? Where are you from? What? But I was real. And I told my story, and I said that I had to learn the healthcare industry from the
Sure.
healthcare industry while I was marketing. And people took me under their wing. And they started telling me about all of the events that I should go to. So I went to all the continuing education events. I went to all of the conferences. I went to all the health fairs and the vendor fairs and the networking events. And I started to meet people. And that was my spiel in the beginning. And people were like, this guy is crazy, but I like him. And then they started sending me referrals. And
Yeah.
then I would sit down with the families. And again, same thing. I don't have a healthcare background, but I would sit down with them and tell them, listen, I love this company. I went to school to be a pastor. And, even though I have sales and marketing background and experience, I went to school to be a pastor. Whether your mom is religious or not, we're at end of life, and that pastoral training really helps me to be empathetic with my patients.
Sure.
And so, I'm here to help you. And the families were like, I trust this guy. I like him. And that was me being me. So
Yeah.
I'm sharing this story because I don't want you to be, I don't want you to be me. I'm me.
Yeah.
Be yourself, be genuine, let people be transparent. It's okay to not know everything. I learned everything from the healthcare industry. I know ADLs, what that stands for now, right? 20 years later. Be who you are and let yourself and your why shine through.
Mm. I think that's so good. I think there's a phrase that most people do not use that is really powerful in getting past the I don't want to be sold to and gets people to have a real conversation with you. And it is, I think you can help, right? You go to that gatekeeper and you say, hey, it's David. Hey, I think you might be able to help. Hey, the discharge planner, what referral sources does she currently really like working with, and what's the reason that she likes working with those? And you can get a little bit of information, and you leave and you come back and you say, hey, it's David again. I got another question for you. And you can start to build that rapport with those gatekeepers because they control a whole lot of who makes it back to the actual stakeholders. Hey, when's a good time to stop by and catch her for 5 minutes? I know she's super busy. And start to build that rapport and that relationship. But I think it starts with, I think you can help. People love to help. If you give people a reason to help, even if it's not a good one, right? Hey, I was in the neighborhood. I think you might be able to help. They are more likely to engage with you. So I think that's a really powerful thing.
I
Okay.
love what you said there, because at the boot camp, if you remember, I said there were two words you always want to repeat over and over again, and it's need and help. Need and help. I can help you with that need. What do you tell me about your needs so that I can be best able to help with it?
No.
Those two words are trigger words that get people engaging, gets them to feel comfortable with you, and it leads to building trust and good rapport.
Yeah. Yeah. Branding is not the big flashy logos on the business cards. Branding is the little tiny things that you repeat over and over again. I love it. Okay, talk about the seasoned mistake.
Yeah,
For
so the season
established
mistake,
owners.
so I said this is the little mistake. I'm gonna say this is actually a big mistake, right?
Yeah.
The successful business, the person who's tasted success, that person, when that business reaches 2,000 hours, that's a milestone that is success. 2,000 hours at the going average rate, you're at a 3.5 million, maybe 4 million, $4.5 million in revenue generated, depending on what market you're in. That is successful, and rightly so. But what happens for the agencies that reach that 2,000 hour mark, they reach this false level of security where they feel that, you know what, I'm going to open up a second location. I'm going to open up another office, and we're going to go an hour away, or I think that this territory is even better than the territory that I have, so I'm going to put an office over there. And the reason why I say that that's the false success level is because it is success, but it's not the success that the owner thinks. The owner thinks that this is a success level where the business is running. I've kind of mastered this. I got good staff. They can manage it without me, and I can go open up another location and double the organization, double the business. And can you do it? Yes. Are there success stories? Yes. But I'm going to tell you, as a consultant, I'm going to say 80% of the time, that means 1 out of 5 make it. 4 out of 5, 80% do not. It ends up becoming a shiny object. You leave the office, all of a sudden you get that fatal Monday and you lose 7 clients that were high need clients, and you go from 2,000 hours to 1,400. And because you're an hour away, you've stopped marketing the way that you used to. You don't have the referrals coming in. And now also takes you 3 to 6 months to get it back to 2,000 hours, right?
Yep.
That's that false success. When do I, as a consultant, confidently recommend opening up a second location? It's more like 3,200 to 3,500 hours a week. Now you're a master level business with one location. You have 5, 6 million, 6.5 million in revenue. Now you can afford another satellite because now you have the true development of your staff that can handle those fatal Mondays, the true development of staff that can completely run the business 100% independent of you as the owner, so you can go and open up another location. Or at that resources, you have enough revenue coming in to hire somebody who I like to call this position an executive director that sells, right? An executive director that sells. So it's somebody who's got the sales experience, but they're also entrepreneurial. And maybe they don't want to start their own business because they're afraid of the risk, but they got the skills for it.
Yeah.
And so you can bring them in as like a minority partner and give them a little cut of it, but then they go out as a one man or a one woman, almost, guerrilla warrior, and they go out and open the location. You run all of the billing, all of the payroll, all of the invoicing and compliance, everything through your main office. And that one person operation, all they do is recruit and market and bring in patients. And once that census gets over 10 patients, then they can get a second person. And then it gets to like 25 patients, and then they bring in a third person to run that operation. That's how you do it the correct way. So again, I say it's a little mistake, but I say it's a big mistake because there's a high failure rate.
Yeah.
2,000 hours, you're not there yet. Get it to 3,200, 3,500 hours, get it to master level, and then open up other locations. You'll have a much easier time duplicating it, and it will literally be, David, a jump, skip, and a holler to $10 million in revenue.
Yeah. Well, that's super, super helpful. We have talked about a bunch of mistakes that you've made, that you've seen other people make, but I like to end every episode on a high note. So what's something that's happened lately in your business that you're really proud of?
The biggest thing that happened recently, I'm super excited about, is 2-part. The boot camp that I had 2 weeks ago, it was my most successful event from a delivery of content standpoint. I felt like me and the audience were of the same mind. Every presentation, every picture, the hugs, the camaraderie. I went a little bit over on time, and nobody batted an eye. Nobody was like, "This is going on a long time." People were like, "I can't get enough." I was exhausted. I didn't even sleep for 3 days straight. It took me a week to recover from it. Right?
Yeah.
But I love that. Last year, 2024, was our record year for us. It was our best year ever. And it was our best year ever, exceeding the best year prior by 24%. So we're already a multi-million-dollar company. So, do the math on that. We grew significantly last year. So I'm very proud of that. And then a couple of new things that just came up. I'm on the board of directors for Nevet 1804, which is an up-and-coming rum company based out of Haiti. I fell into that. I have an investment company. We're looking at buying a memory care assisted living that's happening this week. And I have a virtual assistant company that I'm actually now speaking to a franchise about becoming their primary virtual assistant group tomorrow. So there's a lot of big wins that are happening right now. I give God all the glory because I am a blessed man.
Yeah, that's great. Well, before we get out of here, what do you want to plug?
The boot camp.
Boot camp.
We've been talking about it, right? It's fresh in my mind. The next boot camp is coming up. It's July 16th, 17th, and 18th. I'm calling it the New York, New Jersey boot camp. It actually takes place at the New York City airport, which is in Newark, New Jersey, Hilton Hotel. So you can literally fly to the airport and take the shuttle. You don't even have to rent a car. And then, I say come for the weekend. So you come in, it's Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, stay the weekend, go to Manhattan, see a play, go to the Freedom Tower. Every American should go to the 9/11 Memorial Museum and see that and experience. Manhattan is a great place to visit. Everybody should come to it this summer. It's going to be amazing. And I want to just put a little extra thing out there for my Medicaid friends, because I know you have a lot of agencies that are Medicaid reliant. I know there's a lot of fear right now because you see all the budget cuts and all the layoffs and everything happening in the government, and people are afraid, well, what if they do Medicaid budget cuts? What's that going to do to my business? Don't rely 100% on the government. Take control right now. Sign up for the boot camp. It's the Referral Masters Boot Camp, and focus on growing the private pay side of your business so that you can offset any changes to reimbursement that could happen. Nothing has happened yet, but something could. Don't chance it. Be proactive. Get the training, invest in it, and grow your private pay side of the business. So bootcamp, homecareevolution.com/bootcamp.
It sounds great. Well, Steve, we had a great time at our first boot camp of yours that we went to. We will be back in New Jersey. We've got an office in Manhattan, and so we'll get some folks from that team to come over and hang out. And so we're super excited to do that. Steve, thank you so much for coming on the show today. This was a ton of fun.
Thank you for having me. Like I said, I've been looking forward to it for months. So this is the first time. It will not be the last.
That's right. That's exactly right. Awesome. Thanks so much. On behalf of the team here at Zingage, thanks for listening to the show. We'll be back next week with another episode, so be sure to subscribe wherever you listen to podcasts on Spotify or Apple or YouTube. Leave us a rating while you're there. It helps other people find the show. If you have comments on the show, drop me a line, david@zingage.com. Would love to hear from you, chat with you there.